This is part 3 of 4 parts.
The other thing that seems to happen, by the way, when one substitute behavior is created is that there's a kind of shift of consciousness where the person is no longer in touch with what the original need was. And what they're in touch with is what feels like a need to do the substitute. That's what seems to them at that point like what they need. When we were first studying this material, I can tell this here. It fits a little bit more in the diagram later on, but as an example. When we were first studying this material, we were in a small group and we agreed that we would confront substitute behaviors in each other when we saw them, when we identified them, just to see what would happen, just for learning. So we sat down one of the meetings, and one of the women in the group came in, a minute or two late, and sat down, lit up a cigarette. This was back in the days when people smoked. Okay, and we all decided that was a substitute behavior, and we confronted her about it. What are you really needing? And she said, "I need a cigarette. Get off it." Hold it there. We'll tell the rest of the story later. Fits better later. But she thought that's what she needed. It wasn't what she needed. Okay.
John, do you want me to do how the redecision fits in here, or go back later?
Go back to that later. Let me
Okay.
at least do this, or at least do this piece first. Substitute behavior, then, as far as the environment is concerned, is the same thing as the natural behavioral expression. You can put it out there, something will happen in response, and it'll work or it won't work. Most of the time, the response to substitute behavior is reinforcement. Something happens in response that makes the person keep the substitute behavior. So you get someone who becomes workaholic in order to get strokes, and in fact they get strokes for working a lot, and they get paid for working a lot.
Did you hear the ice cream cone example when you were learning about natural and adapted child? Okay, let's put that in.
Go ahead.
Okay. Natural child eats an ice cream cone, tastes good, it feels good, need is met, okay, cycle. Adapted child eats the ice cream cone carefully and looks up and gets told, "Oh, good, you didn't get anything on your clothes," and then feels good. That's the substitute behavior.
The being careful.
The being careful is the substitute behavior. That's not natural child, it's adapted. And that's the behavior that's reinforced over and over again. What's the difference in the feeling of the two children? The one who eats the ice cream cone and feels good, and the one who eats the ice cream cone and looks for approval and then feels something.
One's internal, one's external.
Yeah.
One's free child and one's adapted.
One's free child, one's adapted.
Critical parent, nurturing.
Yeah. Or even nurturing parent, but one is responsive to parent.
One's doing it for himself, one's doing it for other people.
Okay.
Okay, and internally, does it feel as good to get a stroke for doing something for other people as it does to do something because it feels good?
I think it depends on how your strokes have been built in the first place.
Yeah, if we go back to the scenario, if the mother doesn't respond to the kid at all who's eating the ice cream cone, and what the kid needs besides ice cream is strokes, then the being careful becomes the substitute behavior.
Mm-hmm. And internally, what kind of strokes feel better? For things that you do because they feel good? Or not strokes, but what kind of internal experience? What's more satisfactory? The feeling that you get that when you've done something that intrinsically feels good, or the feeling that you get when you've done something that pleases somebody else?
I think theoretically that it would be the one that intrinsically feels good, but I think it depends on how that's been set up for you from the beginning. Because if you've never been set up to just actually feel, this feels good from the beginning, then they don't. If you have no base to go off of, then how do you know if that feels better?
I'm going to add that
Yes.
A great deal of behavior
Yes.
is substitute. I'm just trying to have you have a sense of the internal shift of the relief that comes when you really feel good intrinsically because you got something that you need, and the experience of getting a conditional stroke that's on the condition of doing your substitute behavior. That's
If you go back for a minute to the idea that once the substitute behavior is created, there's a kind of disconnect from the original need, then no matter how much that gets reinforced and how good that feels, there's still something missing.
But you may not be cognizant.
no.
No,
you're
probably not.
But if you're working with people about getting back to what the original need is, or if you're working with yourself about getting back to what the original need is, you feel a sense of completion, a sense of relief when you go back to the original need and satisfy it, that you don't feel when you're doing a substitute behavior. Yes, Will?
She said you're not cognizant of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you are.
Well, there's a
There's
level.
There's a part that says, this feels good, but it doesn't feel like it should.
I think you're right, and we're often the same training that creates the substitute behavior trains us to not pay attention to that cognition, to that. Yeah, there's probably an experience of it. If you call somebody's attention to it and reinforce their paying attention, they can probably discern it.
That's what we do as therapists.
Yeah.
Constantly. So I'm just trying to fit what you do and what you know into this model.
But I think too, there's a certain amount of pain that comes to people that are not used to being able to fulfill that original need, and so to have that met, it's very painful, and they kind of shy away from that. At least that's my experience with some of my clients.
I would certainly agree with you, Sandy. What usually happens is there's a memory of all of the times of not getting it met and the pain that comes up then.
Yeah.
It feels
The
good, but it's
recognition of how
awful.
hungry
but
I've
it's-
been. There's another class of response to substitute behavior besides reinforcing it. There's another class of response to substitute behavior, and the general heading for that class is confrontation. And what we mean by confrontation is not necessarily something heavy and loud and accusatory. What we mean is anything that recognizes that the behavior you're looking at communicates the recognition that whatever's going on, that behavior isn't really it. So there are several different levels of confrontation. That's what we'll describe next, and you'll see how it fits together.
One of them is picking on people.
Well, you do it for fun, and that isn't necessarily a response to the other person's need or the other person's behavior.
It's one of those, going through this, one of those damn aha experiences.
Okay. It could be. I mean,
would you explain that a little more? Going through it, it's one of those damn aha experiences.
No,
Would you?
it's one of those experiences when I say, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
You're not.
Yeah.
you're not
Yes.
meeting-
There's.
You're not meeting my need. I'm going to insult you or pick on
Okay.
you.
Okay. So you're talking about that in terms of your need. Okay. I'm sorry. I was misunderstanding because I thought you were talking in terms of the need of the other
So
person.
it's-
I got it.
So it's confronting the other person. Hopefully, they'll do something different.
Okay, got it. Well, one form of confrontation is to deliberately reinforce some other substitute behavior. When you take an alcoholic and you get him off the streets and get him to go to 99 meetings in 99 days, that's a confrontation of the drinking behavior that pushes them to do something else, hopefully something less destructive and more potentially, growth producing or whatever. To get somebody down off the roof, who's about to commit suicide, or to shoot them full of Thorazine or something like that, those are all confrontations. They're not accepting the substitute behavior as a legitimate thing. They're trying to control it, change it, or whatever. But even when successful, what you're still left with is a pattern of substitute behavior. You may have a lot more socially acceptable substitute behavior and a lot more functional But psychologically speaking, you're still dealing with substitute behavior. So you get an alcoholic to stop drinking. Obviously, that's not the end of it. Okay? So yeah, you can reinforce a different substitute behavior. Now, I put the diagram, the whole diagram here at this point so you can see how it fits together, because now we're going to talk about the kinds of confrontations that are intended, rather than to maintain energy down here at the substitute level, to try and get it back up here into the OK cycle.
And this is where you're going to have to fill in the rest of your diagram that we gave you.
Right, because we didn't draw that part, so that you can take notes on it.
This is the end of part 3. Please go on to part 4.